MacFun just announced their brand new version of Aurora, and it's Aurora HDR 2018. And I wanted to show you a quick preview of what it looks like and some of the new features that it has to offer. So I'll go ahead and highlight a couple of images here. I'm just going to drag it to the icon, and then I just need to click Create HDR to merge those two images together. Now, one of the biggest new features of Aurora is that it is now available for Windows users. At the time of recording this video, the software will be actually released in about 2 weeks, just a little more than 2 weeks. So if you are a Windows user and you've been waiting for this moment, now is your chance. And if you want to jump over there right now, go to aurora.nicolesy.com. That'll bring you right to their website. Now let's go ahead and just walk through this image. I'll show you some of the new features that they've added to this version. First, it has a very nice, elegant, new user interface. It's been refined nicely. Things look really clean and modern. Up at the top, there is a new icon to Aurora. This is a history button, and it's not going to show anything if I click on it because I haven't made any changes yet, but I'll show you how this works as I progress through this image. Another new feature is the lens correction. If you click on this little aperture icon here, you can see the lens correction features. Now in this image, I actually do have some things that I need to correct. So let me go ahead and zoom in to 100%, and I'll just pan over. And I know I have some fringing or some chromatic aberration right over this little peak right here. So I need to click back on that icon. It looks like it went away when I zoomed in. And I'll go ahead and use that defringe slider. And if I move it far to the left, you can see it really accentuates that fringing. So I will just slide it to the right and watch the image until it goes away. And I'll go ahead and click Apply. Now I'll zoom back out to fit my image in the view. And before I do anything, I just want to do a quick toggle before and after of what the photo looked like before I actually did the HDR merge to it. And I'm going to do that with the backslash key. So if I press and hold the backslash key and then release it and kind of go back and forth and see how things changed. It did a nice job adding the sky and really bringing the detail in that sky, but it darkened the outside of my image a little bit. So I'm going to fix that in the HDR basic panel. I'll go down to the shadow slider and move the shadow slider to the right. And I'm also going to drop those highlights a little bit just so I don't lose that detail in the sky. Now at any time I can toggle this little eyeball, click it, and that will only hide or reveal the panel that I have selected. I think I'm also going to increase the exposure just a little bit. And I'll bump that contrast a tiny bit as well. That's all I'm going to do in here, so I'm just going to collapse this panel. Next, I'm going to go down to color, and I'm just going to do a quick vibrance increase here just to boost some of those colors. Again, I like to toggle that panel on and off, and that's a really subtle change. I just want to make sure that I'm not overdoing it. I always want my photo to look as realistic as possible. I'm also going to zoom out just once. I sometimes like to see my photo a little bit smaller. When the photo is full screen, sometimes it's easy to kind of get lost in the small details of it, and I like to see a larger picture of it to kind of see what it would look like when it's maybe on a website or as a little thumbnail. All right, so next I'm going to go down to the tone curves, and I'm just going to do a really simple S-curve to add a little bit of brightness and contrast. I think I'm even going to take that bottom left part of that curve and drag it up a little bit just to kind of soften some of those blacks. And I'll toggle this on and off. And I like that. I like what that's doing. It's adding a little bit more realism to my photo, to my HDR image. And I'll do a full preview on and off as well. Next, I'm going to go into the color toning. I'm noticing that there's a little bit of a blue tint to the water, and of course there's a little bit in the sky as well, which is fine, but I'm mostly concerned about the blue in the water. So what I'm going to do is in this highlight section, I'm going to slide that hue over to the right until it looks like it's pretty close to a yellow color. And then I'm going to slide the saturation to the right. Now if I move it really far, then it oversaturates that tint. But I have it set to about 12 right there. And if I toggle this on and off, it's just adding a little bit of the touch of warmth to the water to make it look less like it has that blue tint to it from some of the settings that I've changed, some of the previous settings that I've made adjustments to. And that's all I'm going to do there in the color toning. And next I'm going to go into the Dodge and Burn panel, which is a really cool new feature to Aurora 2018. I'll start out just by clicking on that Start Painting button. And at the top I have a few different options. I have Lighten, Darken, and Erase. And then there's also a size setting and a strength setting. I'm going to start out by reducing the strength setting down to about 25 or so. And then I'm going to increase my brush size just by using that right bracket key. I'm going to make sure I have Lighten selected, and then I'm going to brush over the water just to kind of make it a little bit brighter. I'm going to increase my brush size pretty far, and then I'm going to reduce the strength again, about 15, somewhere in there, and then just add a little bit of lightness to this background area. And that's all I'm going to do for that. And now let me toggle that on and off so you can see what I just did there. I basically just added more brightness to that water. I want the water to be the center of attention. And when I didn't have it set, this is with this panel turned off, it starts to look a little too fakey, like too HDR-like. And I really want to make sure that it looks more realistic. And lastly, I'll go ahead and add a really quick vignette. I'm just going to reduce the amount a tiny bit. I'm going to increase the size, the roundness, and the feather, and let's see what that does. That's a very, very subtle vignette. Now I'll do a really quick before and after toggle. And I like the changes that I've made. I think this is looking great. And the last thing I'd like to do is I'd like to add, I'd like to denoise some of the image. Let me zoom in so you can see there's a little bit of noise happening in some of these areas here. So what I'm going to do is create a new adjustment layer. So in the very top, I'm going to select that little plus icon and choose Add New Adjustment Layer. Now I have a full set of all of the exact same tools that I was using before, but none of them have any settings applied to them. So I'm just going to go into the Denoise section, and I'll go ahead and increase the slider to the right. And as soon as I do that, it really starts to kind of mush away some of the settings. So I'm going to reduce the smoothing to the left. And I'm also going to just slide that boost to the right as well. And a lot of this I'm just eyeballing. So I'm just going to toggle this on and off. And it looks like it's really doing the job nicely in the background there. So let me go ahead and do a full screen preview with just this one setting applied. And I like it. It's not really making any extremely noticeable change other than the fact that it's reducing that noise in the background. So now I've made all of these changes, and if I wanted to go back at any time and kind of backtrack a little bit, this is when I would want to use the history panel. So if I click on that little history icon, now I can scroll down and I can see all of those changes I made from when I opened the image. If at any time you ever feel like just starting completely over from scratch, click this little icon on the top right and that will just remove all of your settings and you can start over. Or if you just wanted to find a section, like let's say I wanted to go back to before I did any of the denoising, I could just go back down to that last vignette setting that I did and it would remove all of those changes I did with that second layer.